welcome everybody. This is our first in a series called Growing Up in South County. This was initiated by our esteemed trustee, Donna Gilton, a former library professor at U.R.I. And we're very happy to be joined by members of the South County community to share some of their memories and thoughts with us. So with that said, I would like to bring Donna in, and Donna can introduce her guests for today. Take it away, Donna.
Good afternoon. It is my pleasure to introduce Mrs. Avis Hazard Spears, and she is a nurse, and she grew up in South County. And without further ado, let me go on and start talking about your memories. So, growing up in South County, what are your most pleasant memories of growing up around here?
The country of Rhode Island, South County.
Okay.
My experiences in the church that I grew up in.
Okay.
The people, of course, the people of South County and in my life who helped shape it.
Okay. Okay. And have you had some experience growing up that were more challenging?
There was always somebody in the background of my life encouraging, and I can't say they were challenging. I was very blessed to have incredible older people in my life watching over me so delicately.
Okay. And that's so important. Would you care to mention, some specific people who were very encouraging?
Oh, yes. My mother, my father Reginald Hazard Sr., Mother Sarah, Helen Fry Hazard, Reverend Kenneth Mars.
Okay.
Incredible men and women. Reverend Mars's wife, Lucille Mars, an incredible influence in my life, along with my mama. Of course, my sister, who has gone on. Mostly the older saints, and that's what we call them, in the church that I was raised in. But definitely born and raised in South County.
Okay, definitely. Okay, that sounds good. Growing up, can you remember what your daily life was like? What you did day by day.
You were always busy. Mama never allowed you not to be busy. We didn't have a television back when I was growing up, and we didn't even have a telephone. And when we did get a television or a phone, you weren't allowed to use it as often as we do today. So growing up was, especially with 5 other siblings, it was fun. I have to say it was fun. Most of the time you were creative. You had friends that were right there with you all the time. And you might not be friends all the time because, brothers and sisters, but still in all, the big family was a wonderful thing to have as I was growing up.
Okay. I know your family, you're a very noted group of singers. Any memories about that and similar activities?
I have to confess, I never really wanted to do it. But as long as Papa said, do it, we did it. Today, there's no regrets. Back then, I didn't want to because I didn't want to be putting myself out there. But today, when I look back at, I guess that's what gave me a voice. It made me not so introverted, but to become extroverted in this life, and to understand that the gift that we had in music, because none of us were taught anything. We were just allowed to listen to specific music as children. And then when Papa and Mama heard our voices, and then one Sunday he just said, come on, in youth group at church again, come on, we're going to be singing. And we just kind of all looked at each other and said, are you kidding? But it turned out that we were a cappella.
Yes.
And with that, then it was just amazing how the voices blended. And it did.
Yes.
And it did. And my.
Wow.
blessed, blessed, blessed.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay. Where did your parents work and what kind of work did they do? Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, my father was a mechanic. That's all I
Okay,
knew him to be, was a mechanic, a very good
okay,
mechanic. The very last job he had was for all the fire trucks in South County, which was
okay.
a vastly number in the knowledge you had to have to be a mechanic, period, not just a mechanic for a car, but being a mechanic on a fire truck. Some of the old businesses, I can remember Mr. Ryan's on we call it the Peaceville Flats at that time. He was there
Yes.
for a number of years. He was a mechanic in Wickford. I remember him not being able to come home from snowstorms because he was in Wickford. My mother was an incredible mother. She had 6 of us. She stayed home, but at the same time, she also took in laundry. We said for the rich
Mm-hmm.
folk, that's what we called it, us children, for the rich folk. Mama ironed and washed for the rich people that knew
Okay.
that's what she did. And
Yes.
then took care of us 6. Today, I don't even know how she did it, but she did.
Right. Right. Okay. Okay. Um, okay. And we talked about were there events, circumstances, or people that ever discouraged you in any way that you can think of? No.
No, and no, I can't that. I had encouragers all around me. If I
Okay.
had a discourager, it was myself, because I didn't think of myself as someone that was able to do some of the things I have done in life. But no
Right.
one ever voiced words of not being able to do. It was always saying you can do it, always pushing me and encouraging, not pushing, but encouraging me for the
Oh,
positive, never
good.
for the opposite.
Great. Great. And I know you've mentioned several people who encourage you. Were there also other events or circumstances that were encouraging too?
Oh, the music ministry that I've been blessed to have, the aunts and the uncles who uh, in the Native American world, being able to share with us the heritage that we had, being Narragansett Indians, especially Aunt
Okay.
Lara, my mother's sister, Aunt Lara, who encouraged in making jewelry and in being traditional wampum makers, who my brother is, my baby brother, in taking that quahog shell and making it into jewelry. Um,
Beautiful.
they
Okay.
encouraged me in learning how to do that, and my brother teaching me how to do that during this time, this era of life, the 20th century.
Okay. Okay. Any other thoughts about your Narragansett background?
Oh, loads of thoughts, the powwows, the August meetings. We weren't allowed to go to too many of them, but when we were allowed, being able to be a part of the my brother Alan, who is the baby of the family, being able to come into the circle at grand entry during that time, and just being, I don't even know what word to use. It's a thrilling thing, not just the Narragansett power, but to see a grand entry. I
Yes.
want to use the word spiritual, but it just puts a thrill through you to see so many nations gathering at one time and giving thanks to the land and to the creator, Father God. That's what I call him, but the Narragansetts call him the Great Spirit. Being able to give thanks for so much, for being created Narragansett, not just being created a human being. And I could have been born anywhere, but I was born into the Narragansett tribe of Narragansett of Rhode Island, and
Okay.
I'm honored.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Okay. Let me see. Do you have other, and you've already mentioned individuals, I think with the greatest impact. What other things do you remember about your parents? Can you think of any stories that they passed on to you about, when they were growing up?
My father passed on a story of when he was in the service. The service impacted him
Yes.
in a few areas of his life. He was in a Black regiment. Back then there was Black regiments, white regiments.
Yes.
And he didn't talk much of it as when we were children, but as he grew older and his mind dropped in certain areas, he would bring up so many things about the service, but mostly that he was in high command for the Black regiments, stationed in Florida, stationed in Georgia.
Oh,
and then
wow.
the man in his life, that the white man that stood up for him in a few areas, but then the other areas of life, because you were a man of color down south, and some of the hardships that were there at that appointed time.
Right.
So that's one vast story. He used to talk about his father being
Yes.
a chauffeur for the University of Rhode Island, but it wasn't the university at the time. It was just Rhode Island. It was the college in Kingston.
Yes.
And my grandfather, Reginald Hazard Sr., for my father was Reginald Hazard Jr., was a chauffeur for the secretary, who was a male,
Okay.
of the president there at the University of Rhode Island at that time. And the car that he would be able to bring home to my father and the 10 children that were there. And how proud my father was that his father was the #1 chauffeur for the secretary to the president of the university.
Okay.
So I'd love to hear my father talk about those times.
Okay, that's wonderful. Now, your father, when he was in the service, was he totally in the United States, or did he fight either in World War II or Korea?
No, he stayed within the United States. He was not shipped out of the United States because he was married at that time.
Okay. But I know some of the stories about the Jim Crow he ran into in the South. So that is something.
Yes, he sure did.
Okay. And do you have any memories of your grandparents and other, older relatives from that generation, or older people that you know?
I do. My grandmother was Pearl Stanton, but she had a sister. She had a sister called her Aunt Elsie, and another sister, Aunt Beatrice, and I can remember them well, along with my grandmother, because when we were able to go to my grandmother, and her sisters were with her quite a bit, sitting back with all three of them and just listening to them talk about family things, because that's what we did. We got together as a people of color. We got together and we were in each other's faces almost all the time, especially a Sunday afternoon. That was the day, once you were in the house of God and you left the church, you went to visit family.
Right.
And looking back on those times, it was an honor to be in their presence, to hear them talk about their ancestry, their aunts, because they were my great aunts.
Right.
Aunt Beatrice, and of course my grandmother being Pearl. So speaking of the elderly and being sitting in the midst of them and being able to gather wisdom from them, which I didn't know was wisdom at the time, but when I look back, it surely was wisdom.
Wow. So many lessons for your life and for our lives.
Definitely, most definitely. Being a young lady and what you need to not do, and what you should do when you are in certain places at certain times. They were always ready to give you that bit of information that you needed to have as a young woman in life.
Yes. Wow. Okay. Considering historic events happening in the U.S. and the world as you grew up, and you probably, I think you're probably a little younger than me. You probably grew up in the 50s and the 60s, right?
Right.
And maybe a little bit in the early 70s. And, a lot of stuff going on, the civil rights movement and et cetera, et cetera. Considering all the various historical events happening in the U.S. and the world, did these events have any impact on your life here in South County?
They did. Well, I don't know that they impacted, but I remember having an afro, and people think I remember having that afro. I remember when we didn't wear pants, and going to the school that I was at, a junior high school in South County, and a group of us girls going into the principal's office saying that we wanted to wear pants, and being in the back line of those girls going into the principal's office, being impacted by not wearing pants. versus wearing a dress or a skirt at all times. And now that I'm talking about it, it's like, how did I even do that? Where did the courage come to do that?
Right.
But so the woman's liberation, if you will, coming into my life when I was in junior high school. And I wasn't, I don't know how to say it, but I really didn't know the full extent of the woman's liberation at that time of my life. I just know I was tired of skirts and dresses.
Okay.
So I wanted, and these girls were gung ho at maybe I can get in pants. Yeah, because I had 4 brothers, and that was tough with 4 brothers at that time.
Right, right. So the biggest impact had to do with the women's liberation movement at that time as you were growing up.
Yeah, that was one of them, but it was also another dynamic impact, and that was being a part of the First Church of God in Peacedale. That was a vast impact that I didn't understand also at that time. When you're made to do something at that age, it just becomes like going to school. And though you're learning things about God and stuff like that, it was just another school. I didn't understand it would impact my soul. Where I did understand that the things of the world just impacted my life because, of course, flesh and blood, and you're living here in the world, you want to be as much of it as you can. But I have to say that the Church of God in Peacedale impacted my life vastly, more than anything else in this world and in South County.
In what ways did it do so?
It made me understand that as a female, there was certain, oh, what is the word? There was certain things I wanted to keep intact. There was integrity intact, morality intact, and things were just starting to get out of whack in the world at that time of my life. But I understood, being encouraged by the people of God at Peacedale First Church, what things were precious and which things were honorable.
Yes.
As a young lady growing up in South County, and they surely did prove true. Nothing they ever said, nor anything in the Word of God that they said were in the Word of God, proved wrong. It all proved true to me.
Okay. 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 And I think the only thing I've left out, as aside from what happened with wearing dresses at school, what was school like for you?
Oh, I couldn't wait to get out. I couldn't wait to get out because I wasn't a good student at that time. I was more of a social bug and a social bug than I was. And I played basketball. I played it well. I played basketball all 4 years of high school and all 2 years of junior high school. So I enjoyed that immensely. It was one of the few things that my parents would let me out of the house to do, because my parents kept a close eye on all 6 of us during that time of your junior high school times up. They kept a close eye on us, and they just didn't let us go to anyone's home or at any gathering anywhere other than, of course, the house of God and the other people's homes that we knew.
Right. Okay, I'm taking a quick look at this. Okay, I can't think of any other questions. Do you have any thoughts or anything else you'd like to say?
I don't. I'm grateful. I thank you for allowing me to be a part of this. Thank you.
I thank you very much for agreeing to participate. And your words are wonderful.
Thank you. A little nervous, but again, thank you for the opportunity to reach back into my thoughts and voice some of them. Thank you, Donna Gilton.
Okay, well, that was an honor, and you take care.
You too. Bye-bye now.
Very much.
Bye. Bye, Avis.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.